and we commend it to the House.
I call Paul Goldsmith.
Mr. Speaker, very pleased to take a call on this excellent bill here brought to the House by Jackie Dean, who is a very fine Member of Parliament, a strong and staunch member of the Blue Greens, a promoter of the Mackenzie Agreement, well-known personality in Wanaka and chair of the Law and Order Committee. And it's this commitment to law and order and upholding the law which I think lies behind this piece of legislation that she's brought to the House, which is indeed extending that concern for law and order to the area of the geckos and the skinks and all the critters of this piece of the world that we call New Zealand that we're talking about today. And it's very pleased to see the Greens supporting this legislation, supporting tough penalties, being tough on law and order. It's a pity that they don't carry that logic across to other crimes, but we do celebrate their support in this instance today. Mr. Speaker, I just wanted to remind us all that indeed New Zealand was the last significant land mass to be populated in the earth, apart from Antarctica. It was only 700 or 800 years ago that the first Maori arrived into this country, and prior to that it had lived in splendid isolation for millions and millions of years with no people around. And I remember very well going down to the Catlins one time with Simon Upton when I was working with him back in the 1990s, and we stood beneath a great rimu tree, a very ancient tree that had been grazed by a moor. It was that old, 800 or 900 year old tree, and it brought home powerfully the fact that we just missed what must have been one of the greatest shows on Earth by a split second in geological time. And so New Zealand does have to accept the fact that so much has been lost. First, after a wave of extinction after Maori arrived, and then another wave after Pākehā settled in these lands, and we've lost so many birds due to the forest clearances. My favourite place is a little place called Huia, named after the rather beautiful bird that we lost only 100 or so years ago. So we've had great success in this country building our prosperity by developing the country, and we enjoy that today, but we look back with regret that previous generations were so quick to burn and clear the forests and to lose so much of our biodiversity. So what do we do today? We certainly have a huge commitment to preserving the environment, and that is widely shared across the House. It's certainly not just a preserve of the Green Party. It is widely shared and deeply embedded in the beliefs and attitudes of the National Party, and shared by countless New Zealanders who on their private land protect natural habitat, areas of natural habitat, and make sure that they do everything they can. But we also have a massive investment in the Department of Conservation, running to well over 300 million a year invested. And of course it's often forgotten that we have a third of the land mass of New Zealand set aside in the Department of Conservation's area. A third of the land mass has been set aside to preserve our forests and our natural habitats. And we also have 13,000 square kilometres of marine reserves, up from only a fraction of that figure only 10 years ago. And indeed, we also have 111 threatened species under active management, up from only 42 a few years ago. So we do have a massive investment in conservation in this country. And anyway, that brings us finally to this bill here that we're talking about today, this bill. So what are we trying to achieve by this? And the purpose of the bill, indeed, is to update the penalties across 6 conservation-related acts to better protect public conservation lands and protected native species, Mr. Speaker. And it is expected to act as a deterrent to those who would engage in illegal activity. It is expected to act as a deterrent, and we were shocked in the Select Committee period, when we were listening to lots of information from people coming through of where and in what ways people smuggle these geckos in and out of the country, and it was illuminating, it was interesting, but we all agreed that conservation offending poses a serious threat to our natural heritage. Such offending includes smuggling protected species, killing marine animals, illegal hunting of protected species, logging trees and draining wetlands in protected areas, and releasing potential pests into protected areas. And so increased penalties are proposed across the board for illegal commercially motivated activities, as well as for non-commercial offending and breaches of bylaws and regulations across all 6 acts. And that is a singular achievement by Jackie Dean in bringing this bill to the House. And I'm sure it will make a small contribution to sending a message that New Zealand has, a large contribution to sending a message that New Zealand has no truck with people who will go into our conservation areas, which we are investing such huge sums in across the nation and are so determined to preserve in order to make their own money in nefarious ways. So, I suppose one of the other questions that lingers is why do we have longer jail terms and stronger fines? And there's no question that it does send a strong signal and that there are serious consequences for those who choose to break the law. But it also sends a message. It sends a message that New Zealand takes the protection of our species and native species seriously, and that's a strong message to get across internationally, particularly at a time when we're trying to advance our cause on all sorts of international bodies. That New Zealand does indeed take its responsibilities in the sense of being a isolated set of islands in the South Pacific with a whole lot of endemic species which are unique to this country. We don't take that responsibility, that kaitiaki, lightly, but we make every effort that we can to ensure that we preserve that. So, for some offences, Mr. Speaker, the potential gains, if not caught, are highly lucrative, which acts as an incentive to offend. And so we do need to match the potential gains of this lucrative trade with the maximum penalties, because there's no point. There's no point undershooting on these issues. And the options of longer jail terms also means that when serious offences are committed, international offenders can be refused re-entry into New Zealand, because there's no point being soft on people like that who go around smuggling geckos in their underpants on the plane, coming back, getting caught, and then coming back and then having another go. And most people would be surprised that this is something that people would build their career doing. And I think the average New Zealander wouldn't expect or understand that. Wouldn't expect or understand that this was the sort of thing that people would choose to make their life's vocation. But surprisingly enough, it is a highly lucrative business, and we do need to clamp down on it. I stand here and commend Jackie Dean for this piece of legislation, which is now approaching the end of its 3rd reading. I just will say, another question that lingers is whether the maximum penalties will indeed be imposed, and that's not something that we can have full control over, because it's up to the court to decide. But we have given the courts the flexibility to impose a sentence proportionate to the seriousness of the offending in each particular case. And so the court is required to take into account the seriousness of the type of offence committed, the circumstances of the particular offending, including aggravating and mitigating factors, and the circumstances of the offender. And I think that all makes good sense. So on that basis, Mr. Speaker, I'd be very pleased to commend this legislation to the House and to commend Jackie Dean, the MP for Waitaki since 2005, for this very good bill. Thank you very much.
I call Phil Twyford.
Well, Mr. Speaker, it was quite something to hear